welcome everybody. I'm Rachel Tarash, President and CEO of Enactus, and I'm honored to welcome you to this Lead Change session on the future of higher education. Obviously, here at Enactus, this is a topic near and dear to our mission and our hearts, which is why I am so proud to welcome leading voices in the field today. Joining me are Dr. Asha Bhatia, Director of Research, the Universal Business School in Mumbai, Bob Doherty, Dean of the Forbes School of Business, and Dan Feidelberg, Principal and Higher Education Sector Advisory Leader at KPMG in the US. We are honored to welcome you all as we explore a topic of vital interest to our students and our partners. Obviously, this is a topic top of mind for millions of people today as university and college campuses navigate welcoming students back to campus, as families navigate the value of education as we shift into new learning environments, and certainly for our partner companies as we all think about the future of work. So to start our discussion, I'd like to rewind to the start of this year before the pandemic. It's hard to do so, I know. But Asha, perhaps I'll start with you and ask, prior to the pandemic, where did you see higher education heading, and what were the greatest challenges facing the sector pre-pandemic?
Thank you very much, and hello everyone. So at the Universal Business School, we were looking at collaborations across all departments of the university. We were looking at more transparency, accountability in terms of, the learning outcomes, feedback from students, and we're also looking at integrating data analytics and into the curriculum to get a more STEM-infused MBA. This is what was the general, the curriculum and process that we were looking at before the pandemic. The greatest challenges that I can see then were the faculty to becoming more open-minded to taking up new experiments in teaching and also in collaborative research, because research was generally considered as an individual badge of honor. So the challenge was also to get more collaborative research. So I think this was what was the general opinion before the pandemic began.
So Dan, maybe I'll turn the same question to you, given your sector view. How did you think about the greatest challenges facing the sector overall pre-pandemic?
Well, first of all, thank you, Rachel, for the opportunity to spend time together and to enable us to share thoughts and learn from one another. Pre-pandemic, I believe that the higher education sector, particularly in the U.S., was facing challenges of access, of affordability, and thinking about how to engage in quality education across a very diverse set of communities at a time when public financial support for universities has been waning over the last couple decades, forcing tuition rates and the cost of attendance to dramatically increase. And this has been a major challenge, but it's also opened the door for new forms of learning and new technologies, which I know we'll talk about here. And created the opportunity to create a diverse set of experiences for students going forward. So the cost of attendance, I would say, is one of the major challenges facing universities in order to foster access for all of our students who so seek higher education.
So Bob, building on that, perhaps you can share with everybody your role and share your view of that, particularly as it relates to access to education as well.
Sure. And I think the original question was around what the world was like pre-pandemic. I am starting to wonder what the world actually was like pre-pandemic. It seems like so long ago. And I would certainly echo what Asha and Dan had to share on that. And I think what everybody quickly realized was globally 1.4 billion students, if you look across the entire K through 12 university sector, suddenly had to figure out how to have some form of digital or online learning. And quite frankly, the world was not ready, as I think most all of us have witnessed. It's remarkable to see some of the innovations and what, it sounds like Asha's university is doing, and Dan's organization advises a great many institutions. And it does boil down to access, and how are we as educators able to provide students with relevant curriculums at the right time in the right modality, is really something I think we're going to be focused on for years and years to come. Digital learning started 25 years ago with the advent of the internet, and there's been in various pockets a lot of great innovations and early adopters and so forth. Our business school has been solely online from inception, and so we have I think we've done some things right, and quite frankly, there's a number of things that we're realizing that we can get better at. So it's a remarkable time, as I think we all appreciate in higher education.
So, with the rapid changes underway, where do you see the greatest priority needs in light of the changes we've undergone in the last 6 months? Obviously, many campuses around the world are bringing students back into hybrid learning environments, combined online and in-person settings. Some are doing so more successfully than others. But if you think about your institutions, those you know best or those you work with best, where do you see priorities landing in the short term? Maybe I'll start with you, Dr. Basha.
Yes, so I think the most important thing that we have to do now is to ensure that there is no academic loss. And we have been working on this hybrid model of synchronous and asynchronous learning. Over the last 5 months, we've used online learning, and I think we've done a decent job with it. Now, the important thing is to have vertical as well as horizontal learning. So vertical learning through the theories, building up learning abilities, and the horizontal learning from peer-to-peer learning and experiential and immersive learning. Now, if I look at India, we have got this new education policy now, which is going to completely revamp the Indian education system. It's going to be multidisciplinary, and it's going to focus more on industry engagement. There'll be more flexibility for students for their entry and the exit points for all the courses that they take. So this has come at a time when this was really needed, and I think it's going to be a big help.
Dan, what is your view, as you work with so many institutions in the space, what is your view in terms of reprioritizing?
I think in terms of what this moment, the pandemic, has meant to higher education institutions, I mean, first I would recognize the role that higher education institutions have played in the immediate addressing of the pandemic. That includes, of course, continuing in the resumption of learning as part of the recovery. It also includes the provision of healthcare and research to both find remedies as well as vaccines. And higher education institutions have been core to how we as a society have addressed the pandemic. It's also been a moment for higher education institutions to redouble their efforts to foster diverse and inclusive communities, and to address the challenges that underserved communities face, and also to help tackle the issues of global climate. But in terms of how universities are managed, it's a moment that many say will trigger and result in transformational change. And there have been many forces that over time have been nudging higher education institutions to take a hard look at how they operate and begin to change. And this moment has accelerated many of those forces. But at the same time, we also have to recognize the context. In some respects, it is just a moment in time because higher education institutions are amongst the most durable institutions in our history, with many throughout the globe and also here in the U.S. that predate the current organizational structure of government. So over long periods of time, universities tend to reflect longstanding traditions and cultures. And so even as the pace of change increases, and we certainly feel that with the pandemic, colleges and universities can be slower to adapt. So in a moment like this, it's important for institutions to both carefully manage change, but also do it in a way that seizes the moment and the opportunity to act quickly. So with that in mind, I would say that in the context of the priorities I talked about earlier with respect to access and affordability and quality, student success has been and also will continue to be top of mind. And a longstanding challenge for our institutions has been making investments in a way that fosters student success, with the notion that some of those investments can be countervailing forces against access and against affordability. So I'll talk about two key areas that I think will accelerate the adaptation as a result of the pandemic. The first is the opportunity to utilize digital tools to enhance the connection between the digital and physical worlds. And I want to be clear here that we don't believe that there will be a full shift from in-person learning to online, but rather there is a blending of the worlds, and hybrid learning is certainly going to be a mode that in-person campuses adopt and lean into as we go forward, because we recognize that the physical and digital worlds are blending. So we think about the future of the student experience and how mobile tools can help students navigate the university. From a mix of in-person and hybrid learning platforms, or project-based or experiential platforms like Enactus provides, to even how students schedule advisory appointments or manage meal plans or engage in clubs and extracurricular activities, and the networking that will go into fostering lifelong relationships. So it's got to be integrated in a way that enhances the experience and can leverage AI and provide tools to students to foster success. And the second area, I would mention is that this environment may enable consolidation, both domestically and internationally, and both physically and digitally. And in the United States, over the last few years, we've already seen some larger institutions look to expand their offerings in a way that attract students in various modes and expand access. Over the last few years, Purdue University had purchased Kaplan to form Purdue Global, and Arizona State University has developed a major online presence. And just a few weeks ago, the University of Arizona purchased Ashford University from Zovia to create the Arizona Global Campus. So as we move forward, I expect to see more of this, and we may even begin to see opportunities for universities to merge physical footprints as well, even across provincial or international borders.
Dan, thank you. There was a lot there to unpack, and I want to turn to Bob with some of it, because you mentioned the mergers and acquisitions taking place in the sector and what that might mean for students. So Bob, maybe we can speak to you as Dean of Forbes School of Business. Ashford University recently underwent a merger, as Dan just mentioned. What will that mean for students, both those who were attending the physical space and those online? How does that bring greater value to the student learning experience?
Yeah, and as you said, there's a lot to unpack there, and for all of the Enactus students who are tuning into this, I would share a few things. And Dan, talked about access and affordability, and higher education has not been the most innovative industry for truly centuries. I have a degree from the University of Cambridge, and they are over 800 years old. And they've come up with 3 products for the most part in their 800-year history: a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate. And those are really their 3 product offerings over 800 years. And access to institutions historically has been based on physical limitations. And what we're now seeing is the merging of the digital and the physical worlds in really interesting and profound ways that are going to change the ability to have access. And just this session alone, where we've got students from, dozens, scores of countries coming together simultaneously. And we should all thank Asha, because it's late at night in India, for joining us here. But that is really the most profound long-term change, is to how we start to think about institutions that support students. And historically, it's been institution first, student second. And so, as Dan said, there's a lot of changes that are going on in the US. I think those changes will go on in every country around the world. Does the United States really need 4,000 colleges and universities? Probably not. How many do we need? Less than 4,000. The real issue is how do we as educators become student first and last? We always say that, but the institutional model has been so focused on the infrastructure and the tradition and the heritage. That's how you get a remarkable institution like Cambridge to have only 3 product innovations in 800 years. If you really study the supporting administrative structures that allow or not allow that type of innovation, it's really fascinating to see. And it's deeply sad what's happened with this pandemic. But I think one of the silver linings is education is going to be forever transformed, and students that may not have had access to certain institutions or certain faculty members or certain curriculum, that will now be changed forever.
So it's an exciting and pivotal time in the industry and in the sector, but I have a very pragmatic question that's just come over from one of our students. And that is, for somebody who's at university or college right now, what do you advise them to do? Campuses and administrations, higher education institutions are trying to adapt rapidly. Do you advise them to stay the course and continue their course of study? Some of our students are opting to take a little time off. And to evaluate their options as more and more universities make online education accessible. What would you advise our students to be thinking about, especially as they're thinking about how to navigate and best prepare for the world of work? And I'll open that question up, but maybe I'll start with you, Asha.
Yeah, thank you. So for this, I'll take the example of the World War. So does one stop eating? No. So it's the same here. Learning is food for the brain. There's no option. You don't stop learning. I think time is money. Our students have to make the best of whatever is possible in these given circumstances and continue to learn. And I'll say, stay the course.
And Dan, what would you advise from a very pragmatic perspective, and perhaps here in the U.S.?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with Asha that in terms of staying the course with respect to lifelong learning, it's a journey that you've already undertaken throughout your journey to university, and you will continue it for the rest of your lifetime. In that context, it's important to follow your passions, to dream and recognize that you're at a moment in your life that's going to give you experiences that's going to prepare you for the first 5 years of your career. And you'll have the opportunity throughout your lifetime to continue to learn, to network and build relationships, to create diversity in those relationships that will enrich your own perspectives, and remake your path. Thinking about my own journey, my career path took a very different turn from what I originally envisioned. And so many of us look back 20 years out of university and think about the diverse experiences we never would have imagined when we were there. So certainly for some individuals, it makes some sense to step away and have an experiential learning opportunity and to come back. For some, they go straight through. But think about your own opportunities and what you plan to do for the next 5 years, and follow the path for the journey you're just about to start.
Great counsel from you both. Dan, I will say I'm a bit biased, but I do think that the experiential learning opportunity that Enactus offers is really a strong complement. And we use, as many of you know, the World Economic Forum data on preparation for the world of work as one of the benchmarks that we look at, which really focuses on the skills outside of what we all know, the needs for technology and innovation, engineering skills, et cetera, but all of the skills that allow us to work in teams, to adapt, and to be resilient. And that's why I'm so proud of the student work that's on display in that showcase this week. So, Bob, let me turn to you and ask about that specifically. So at Ashford, you have a lot of online students, I believe, entirely online.
We do, yeah.
How does Ashford and how does the Forbes School of Business nurture experiential learning opportunities, if at all, and what would you say about the sector overall as it relates to experiential learning, aside of course from the fact that they should all embrace Enactus?
They absolutely should all embrace Enactus. The majority of our students are working adults, and so we actually cater to students that oftentimes started university and then went out and had learning experiences or experiential experiences, and oftentimes joined the workforce, and then realized, in their mid to late 20s, and in some cases even their mid 30s, that they wanted to go back and get a degree. And so that's the majority of our students. I think to build on Asha and Dan's points, and the pragmatic question of, should I take some time off given the pandemic of 2020? I think the obvious question, which maybe is just the answer is already implied, is make sure that you're safe and healthy, and that your institution is taking all the precautions necessary so that you're not putting yourself or anybody else in harm's way. From a very practical standpoint, and Dan hit on it, when you're in your late teens, early 20s, it's the world is truly your oyster, and the ability to plan out, well, this is what I'm going to be doing at 30 or 40, and by this time I will have won my Nobel Prize or made my millions, or what the case may be. This is truly the beauty of Enactus, is it serves two really important functions. One is it's giving you skills that you typically don't have an opportunity to develop in a traditional classroom. And so leadership and teamwork, collaboration, critical thinking, those are just remarkable skills that any organizational leader will highly value in you when you try to join a group or a team or a company. The second thing, and I hearken back to my farmer days in Ohio, where my grandfather would say, who you know will get you there, what you know will keep you there. And who you know is, in this digital world, the opportunity to actually meet people from all over the world, establish close relationships, is vitally important. I think all of the students will quickly realize, and if any of the panelists here had to share their own personal stories as to how did you become the dean, or how did you become a leader in this organization? Well, I knew Rachel, and Rachel knew Dan, and Dan knew Asha. And so in this, pandemic 2020 time, if you are going to take time off, I'd really think about, how do I build my network, and how do I think about establishing relationships that I might not normally have access to just by going to my university or college.
Bob, thanks for that. And you're underscoring again the value of Enactus, which I very much appreciate. One of the things we're aiming for this week, as you know, is a very, very diverse, globally inclusive gathering. And one of the things we're trying to nurture, of course, for all the students listening, is our online community at Enactus Plus, where you can indeed start to build those relationships either through interest, through topic area, through area of study with one another. And we're proud to say we have now over 40,000 students on that platform, but we know we have much more opportunity. And opportunity is a big part of this conversation. So let's turn to some of the opportunities that you see for institutions as they navigate through this moment in time. Dan, as you said so succinctly, what do you see as the first adaptation, aside from synchronous and asynchronous learning, that universities should be thinking about today? And I'll start here first, perhaps, Asha, with you. Outside of the US, a very different perspective for the needs of India, an incredibly rich and diverse educational system. Share with us how you think about that.
So like I said, we have the new education policy. The government is doing its bit. But for the current scenario in education, as we see it, I think EdTech is going to play a very major role. And it's here to stay. So we've seen this phenomenal adoption of EdTech in the recent times, in these pandemic times. And universities across the world and also in India, we're partnering with courses like for this model of adaptive learning, where students can learn at their own pace, at their own time. And very important for all the universities to do is to upgrade on the technology. Because as you see, the industry is relying on technology for getting all their insights into the productivity. They are looking at deep learning through using technology. So the same way, if the institutes or the universities have to keep pace with the industry, we'll have to invest in employing more technology into their DNA. So that's my thought on this. And we are nowhere far behind the West. Now we have to look at the education. When we are looking at benchmarking, we have to look at benchmarking with the best in the world, not only in India.
Indeed, and I saw both Bob and Dan, I think, taking notes as Asha started to speak. So perhaps I'll turn it to Dan. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think we're just at the beginning of the journey, and certainly agree with you, Asha, about EdTech being here to stay and the continuation of the journey into digital learning as, again, the physical and digital worlds meld. I did talk earlier about the creation of integrated experiences and using digital tools and mobile applications for universities to really create a holistic integrated experience, both inside the classroom and outside as part of their offerings to students. I think that underscores a move toward a more student-centric market place of educational experiences. And Bob, you alluded to this earlier in terms of the pace at which higher education has innovated in their offerings to students. So I think we will see more innovation in the type of offerings and the type of experiences that universities are able to offer students. And I would add to that the university's role is evolving as an accelerator of entrepreneurship, as a center of entrepreneurship and venture investment, and enabling students and faculty to take their ideas, to give them the tools and resources necessary to launch small businesses and companies and ideas and have access to the global market. And that's also an area that has begun, but has only just begun. And I think we'll see much more of as we go forward.
Bob, I think you were itching to add something to the conversation there.
Yeah, it is a remarkable time. You know, the World Economic Forum latest data, which I think is about 18 months old, they counted 207 million students in higher education around the world. By 2030, they expect that number to be over 400 million, so effectively a double. And it then begs the question, will all those incremental 200 million students be going to traditional campuses? And I think what everybody just heard from Asha and Dan is not likely. The vast majority of that growth will come through digital learning. And what is remarkable is that, you know, the nearly 200 countries around the world have their own unique both opportunities and near-term constraints, the United States included, around how to adopt digital technologies to allow for access and, most importantly, affordability. You know, an enormous problem in the U.S. is affordability. And while, you know, Socrates 2,000 years ago charged a couple of cents to have access to the forum so students could come in and hear Socrates, you know, opine, the way that education is paid for and then financed should be much more tied to the labor market in every country around the world. And so one important reason to get a college degree is it serves as a signal in the labor market. I'm a trained economist, and by having a college degree, you immediately qualify yourself for lots of jobs in the labor market that you wouldn't be qualified for if you did not have a college degree. Now that's changing very rapidly as institutions, you know, corporations focus on what competencies does this person really have, and can they do the job? And that's where it's a combination of academic learning and experiential learning that is really where I think higher education is going and needs to go. And obviously that's a really vital role that Enactus plays with all of its partner institutions.
So the time has flown by and we're nearing the end of our session. So I want to ask one question to all three of you, because it's near and dear to the hearts of our students today. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about access and about financial capability, and our students recognize they're among the most fortunate in the world to be at university or college, to have experiences like Enactus to supplement what they are learning in the classroom. But many of them are right now evaluating whether or not that's a good investment, and how they should be thinking about best preparing for the world of work over the next 2 to 4 years as institutions determine what their next steps are and how they embrace synchronous and asynchronous learning. What parting thought would you leave with those students who are very focused on preparation for the world of work, whether it be pursuing their own entrepreneurial endeavors or seeking to work with one of our partner companies or others? What would you leave with them today? And maybe we'll start with you, Asha.
So I think my advice to them will be continue to learn. Think of your learning as a lifelong marathon. University is not the end, but just the beginning of your learning. The second point I would leave them is with be voracious readers. That's something they can do anytime, anywhere. And you know, what you can learn from various authors across various fields is awesome. And my third point to them would be seek your purpose in life, because you have to be and try to be a valuable asset so that you can contribute to the industry, to the environment, and the society at large. So that goes with the theme of enactors. Also, the ethos of enactors, the 3 Ps: planet, profit, and people. Thank you.
Asha, thank you so much for that. That obviously resonates for me personally and for all of us involved with Enactus. And we can hear your faculty advisory role voice coming through there, but we know indeed that students join Enactus because they are seeking to find their purpose. And now, in light of this environment, how they adapt to what the expectations are for them afterward is critical. So Dan, I'll turn it to you for your counsel. What do you say to
I want to underscore one point Asha made, and it's that there's a reason why when you graduate from your university, it's called commencement, and that means it's the beginning, not the end. As Asha said, it gives you the opportunity to use this moment to dream, to figure out how you can begin to make the world a better place, and think about how to foster that passion in your ideas, which could be in any one of the 17 SDGs, and in any one of an area that you choose to work and choose to lead and foster passionate leadership. And being a passionate leader means that you're not afraid to dream and share those ideas with others, and it means you're not afraid to network and even in a virtual setting and engage in opportunities like this that continue even in spite of our inability to come together in person. And it means that you can listen to others, and through that learn and share your thoughts and refine your thoughts over time. So it's a wonderful launching point in this moment, and certainly wish each and every one of you the best as you start your journeys, and congratulate you on being part of this organization and this experience.
Dan, thank you. And Bob, will give you the last word here on council, and then I'll share a few thoughts.
Well, I would truly just echo what Asha and Dan just shared. I think if our students were to listen to those 2 minutes every day for the next 30 days, candidly, and take that advice to heart, it would serve them very well. You know, my simple share at this juncture, at this moment in time in your life, at this moment in time in history, and all of us that reach a certain age, you realize when you are living through history. And Asha mentioned a world war. I mean, people who lived through a world war knew they were going through a remarkable time in history. And from a personal standpoint, as Dan said, when you graduate college, it is a deeply personal moment in your personal history. Everybody that graduates college can remember it extremely vividly, well into their 80s and 90s. What I would really suggest at this juncture is and at every juncture in your life, is to think about how to always be of service and how to add value to other people. And again, in moments in time, we often need to be focused on ourselves or our families for lots of important reasons. But as you go out into the world, think about how you can be of service to others, to your communities, to your countries, and you know, the future frankly will just take care of itself. So Rachel, I'm very grateful to you and Enactus for allowing Asha and Dan and me to be a part of this.
Well, we're incredibly grateful to all of you for sharing your insights. Obviously, our students are navigating this time with aplomb. Couldn't be more proud of them, but couldn't be more honored than to have welcomed all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So today's insights, honestly, will shape and will help guide Enactus. We, of course, too, are adapting to the changing dynamics that our students are facing, and we know we have a critical role to play in democratizing access to those tools for all students worldwide. That's why now more than ever through this week and others, we are expanding our relationships with partners and individuals who invest in next-gen leaders through Enactus. So if you're a part of a company, if you're invested in the global goals and are supporting them, please consider joining us alongside partners like the John Dobson Foundation, who educates the public about investing, the free enterprise system, and entrepreneurial activity in Canada. Amid a difficult funding environment, we are indeed experiencing a surge in student participation, and we couldn't be more proud, and we will meet that need. That more than anything reinforces our mission today. So if you or someone you know would like to learn more about our work and that of our students and their remarkable impact, please go to enactus.org. And thank you everybody again for joining us for this session.